their payroll was like 155, 158 last year. They could have kept that and still had some things to do this offseason. You're probably not going to re-sign Sonny Gray at that point, but they could have at least boosted the depth, added a competent fourth or fifth starter, which they right now need.
There he is, our friend Aaron Gleeman from The Athletic. You've got the OG crew here, Kratz and Krasinski, Braun here with you for anyone listening on the pod side of things. And also check out Aaron's pod. It's awesome. We'll talk about it in a sec. But are the Twins okay, Aaron? I know they'd been struggling off kind of a slow start. And you heard my little teaser. They only beat the White Sox by one run, just barely, with Pablo Lopez going in yesterday's game. How are you?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on. That's a fair question. Are they okay? I was wondering that, through about 6 or 7 innings last night, and I've been wondering that pretty much the entire season watching this team. They should be okay for like the next week and a half because they play, I think, 5 more games against the White Sox, so that'll help.
Hey!
Yeah, sorry, hey! AJ. Somebody asked Baldelli pregame yesterday, the day before, is it, you look at the White Sox numbers and their record, and is it hard to stay motivated playing such a bad team? And he looked the reporter in the face and he said, right now we're a bad team. So it's very easy to stay motivated because you got to beat someone. And so they just need to get wins any way they can right now at this point in Minnesota because, they not only are they way behind where they thought they would be, not only haven't they hit basically all year, but the rest of the Central, aside from the White Sox, not nearly as bad as everybody thought it would be, not nearly as horrible as it was last year. So even the idea of, 83, 84, 85 wins winning this division might not be accurate this year because I think as of right now, Cleveland's got the best record in the American League.
Yeah, Cleveland is rolling right now. So 2 questions for you based off of last night's games and some of the tweets that we were showing that you put out there over the last 24 hours. One, is Pablo Lopez okay? Velocity-wise, there was some concern. And 2, we just showed the tweet about how most teams are just pouring on off-speed pitches against Minnesota besides the White Sox not getting the memo. So what's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking to see, and it did make me think, we watched basically, I think the Twins are seeing the fewest fastballs in baseball and one of the fewest rates since they started tracking this stuff like 10 years ago. And then I'm watching the White Sox throw them 70% fastballs the past 2 nights, especially the bullpen. And then you saw guys like Trevor Larnach, who struggled all career versus off speed. His eyes light up when they give him a 4-seam, and he hits it for a 2-run homer last night, and it changes the game. So I was shocked by that. It did make me kind of think, well, yeah, the White Sox are playing bad, but maybe they're not being put into the best position to succeed from like a scouting report standpoint. The Lopez issue is definitely a worry. I mean, we talked to him post game because he struggled. It was like a 40-pitch 4th inning, gave up 3 runs. But the bigger worry was he was like 94, 95, which is pretty usual for him. And then all of a sudden it dipped down to 91, 92. We asked him a couple different ways post-game, how do you feel? He said he felt fine. Baldelli was more, I guess, cautious with that, saying they want to see how he comes in today and they'll talk to him about it. But, I mean, that would be just a huge blow to the Twins even if he's forced to miss a couple of starts and it's nothing serious. But I think for now they seem cautiously optimistic that it was just, sort of a cold night, bad inning, and all that. But yeah, they can't afford to lose anymore. They're already down Correa and Royce Lewis. Pablo Lopez has been basically an ace for them since they got him last offseason. So that would be one that I don't even know. It's April, it's early, but it would be getting late pretty quickly for the Twins if he's down.
What is the Twins lineup identity? Taking pitches until one hits your bat? Is it what is their identity?
I mean, I think they've definitely developed and, I don't know, kind of assembled a lineup that crushes fastballs. That's their ideal. I think maybe that stems from 2019, the Bomba Squad team where they set the record for homers. I mean, they ambush pitchers, they destroyed fastballs. And even since then, they've been, top 2, top 3 in the league, usually in slugging percentage versus fastballs. But I worry that the pendulum has swung a little bit too much towards that, and they don't have enough guys in their lineup that can even kind of put up a fight against off speed, spin, movement, changes of speed. At some point, the league catches on to that. I think we saw that in the playoffs against both Toronto and Houston. They both threw fewer than 50% fastballs against the Twins, and we've seen that basically all year except for the White Sox. They've seen fewer than 50% fastballs pretty much every game, and they just don't have enough guys in this lineup, whether it's young guys or even some guys they brought in like Carlos Santana. He really has no track record of hitting off speed. And it's great to crush fastballs. I mean, that's what you want as a baseline for a hitter. I'm sure you guys would be able to know more than me, obviously. But at some point, you become so easy to game plan against when there's just this massive gap between what happens when I throw this guy a four-seamer and what happens when I throw this guy a slider. And it's not like teams are going to, stop doing it. And once they smell blood in the water and they realize, oh, this team can't hit, spin, you're just going to see more and more of it. And so the Twins, whether it's a coaching thing, whether it's a game plan thing, or honestly, it might just be an issue of how do we add a little bit more diversity to this lineup with guys who can actually handle off speed. They need to make changes with that, I think, or they need to at least adjust with that, because their identity right now is we crush fastballs, and then other teams basically just said, okay, that's good. We'll just stop throwing you fastballs. Now what? And the Twins so far at least haven't figured out a way to counteract that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to me you say that, but is okay? So is that a player problem? Is that a hitting coach problem? Is that a development program problem? Is that a manager problem? Like, whose fault is it? I mean, basically, if you look at the Twins lineup, for what you're saying, you have a bunch of the same guys that if you could just go out there and execute spin. And listen, if you watched Eric Fetty yesterday, I know they won, but Eric Fetty dominated until Kopech and Wilson came in and lit it on fire in the 8th and the 9th. But before that, I mean, Fetty was, he was throwing two-seamers that were sinker. He was throwing changeups. He was throwing breaking balls. So whose fault is that? Is it development, players? I mean, I don't know where to start.
I mean, the sad answer is it could be all of the above, kind of, which makes it difficult. I mean, I do think they develop, whether it's guys like Wallner or Larnach, their player type a lot of the time, especially with the corner bats, seems to be they don't mind swing and miss. They want big power. They want guys who, crush mistake pitches, which is great when it's clicking, but then you're prone to going through some long, slumps, which we've seen basically all season. I think there's some questioning about what kind of game plan, especially against starting pitchers. Their numbers against starters are horrendous all season. I think starters against them have like a low 2 ERA. That to me suggests that the scouting and the game plan that they're kind of entering the game with isn't ideal to put them in position to succeed. But I also then look at, well, who have they added? What veterans have they added to this lineup over the past couple of off seasons? I mentioned Carlos Santana. He's been a really good player, but he's 38, and he's always just been a fastball hitter. You go back to last offseason, they added a guy like Joey Gallo, who is the definition of a pure fastball hitter. And so I don't think the front office has been doing them any favors in terms of trying to kind of balance out the guys they tend to develop with guys who have a slightly different skill set. And I think what you said is exactly right, which you look up and down this lineup most nights, it's a lot of guys who have some power. It's a lot of guys who have a lot of swing and miss, and it's a lot of guys who are kind of willing to take borderline pitches in the hopes that there's going to be a meatball there at some point that they can pounce on.
Is this team constructed exactly the way that they wanted to construct this team when they made the playoffs last year and they were like, you know what, we're going to go deep into free agency and not get anybody and actually cut payroll? Like, are they just like, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other factor is like, I think there's some room to criticize Derek Falvey in the front office for some of the pieces they've added here. For the most part, they haven't really produced yet. But like you said, they slashed payroll by 30 or 35 million. That was not the front office's idea, obviously. And so I don't know that guys like Carlos Santana would have been atop their list if they had $30 million more to spend. Not that they were going to make some huge splash in free agency. That's not really the Twins' style other than Correa. But, they might have had a few options that were not quite the, end of the line 38-year-old bargain bin guys. They're also, Correa's been out for a couple weeks now. He's probably going to miss a couple more weeks. Royce Lewis went 2 for 2 with a homer in his first 2 at-bats, and he's been out ever since. He's probably at least still a month away. I mean, those are your 2 best position players, obviously. You toss in some of the veterans not doing what you'd hoped. You toss in Matt Wallner, who was really good as a rookie. Now he's back at AAA because he struggled so much. I mean, I think there's no doubt that this is not the team they wanted to put on the field from a payroll and signing standpoint. It's also just not – the star power has been diminished because you're down Correa and Lewis already, and then you look further than that. And not only are the veterans, Kyle Farmer, Christian Vasquez, guys like that, Santana, Willie Castro, not only are they struggling, it's one thing to struggle, but you look and they're hitting, 095, 110, 140. I mean, these are – old-timey pitcher lines as hitters. And so I don't know what you really do about that. To me, seems very strange that an entire group of veteran guys who are, 8, 10 plus years into the majors would all stumble out of the gates like that.
Give me the fan pulse, because I know it was a frustrating offseason for them. A good time to also plug Gleeman and the Geek, great pod, which, you guys answer a ton of fan questions on there too, in addition to your work in The Athletic. The narrative sucks, right? It's, hey, we need to move to this new ballpark. We need public funding. We need to be able to keep up with other teams and have our payroll at that level. You wait for a long time to have playoff success. You have it. You profit from that. And then in the offseason, everything gets blamed on regional TV deals, and they are getting paid to put their games on television. And I know it's a little off, but it's probably not that off. So you sum that all up, you have a slow start, and fans say what?
The morale is bad. I mean, I'm going to tell you, it was bad It was bad all offseason once people realized the stuff we were just talking about, that payroll was going to go down 20%. They weren't really going to make any moves. They were just going to let Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda, guys like that leave in free agency and not replace him. But people kept going, okay. I mean, all around, it was probably their most successful overall season in 20 years. They finally won a playoff series. The vibes were good. I remember walking out of there in October at Target Field. It was like euphoria. People would say, we finally got the curse broken. And then you spend 3-4 months of the offseason realizing, oh, they're not actually going to do anything, and they're kind of going to shed talent. And the thing that I think was keeping everyone from morale, going through the floor was, well, maybe they just win. Maybe they just play well and they win this division fairly easily like they did last season. And now that's out the window. And so now you're looking at a fourth place team that can't hit, that's had a bunch of injuries, that all the, guys they added on the margins are kind of, looking cooked, basically, a lot of the veteran guys. And there's no real help. It's not as if they can go sign anybody else. It's not even probably as if they can go add some high-priced guys at the trade deadline. I mean, first of all, right now their biggest problem is you got to stay relevant until the trade deadline. And so it's rare you see morale. Not only is it low right now, but I've never experienced a Twins team, or probably any team, where it's sunk from higher to lower in a shorter time period. I mean, they've played 22 games since they won a playoff series, basically, and the morale has gone from A+ to D-. And I don't know how you really bounce back from that, other than you get back on track and you really start winning and you get back near the top of this division. But yeah, it's decades and decades of skepticism from fans about how much this ownership group wants to spend and how interested they are in putting a winning team on the field consistently. And it was all kind of confirmed to them in this offseason, where you have a great, by their standards, at least, season. And the reaction is, we're going to slash payroll. We're going to let guys leave. And now we're not even going to play well.
Okay, Aaron. So I have two questions for you. One, what curse? What curse?
Yeah. Well, ever since you hit that homer against the A's.
That's all I needed. You made me say.
Great point. But seriously, true. So true. Why can't they raise payroll? The poll ads are richer than Scotty Braun. I don't understand why they can't raise payroll. I mean, they sell businesses like every other month for like $300 million, and they just put Target Field in, and they were selling out every game since 2010 when they opened Target Field. I don't understand why can't they raise payroll? They get great viewership on TV. They forced Dick Bremer out, right, because he was making too much. So they got his money back. They recouped his money. So why can't they spend? That's my question. Is you win your first playoff series since 2002 last year, okay? Then they played the Astros. I was there. That was a tough series. They were in it, but the Astros were just better. But why can't the poll ads go out and give Thad Levine and Falvey money and say, hey, keep Sonny Gray, go get another hitter, and hey, maybe we got a chance to actually get to the next level? Because this honestly has been going on since I was there, and I came up in 1998. It's always like, oh, we don't have any money. We don't have any money. They have money. They just don't want to spend it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. They can spend. They just choose not to. And, they'll tell you that they've lost money over the last several years. And I guess I'm willing to believe that. It seems hard to lose money in baseball these days if you're an owner. But even if you are losing money year over year, the valuation of these teams go up, tens of millions of dollars every year. I think the Pohlad family in the 80s bought this team for $50 million, and now it's worth $1.5 billion. So even if you are losing $25, $35, $50 million a year, that kind of pales in comparison to the overall value of the thing. And I don't really know how we got to the point that fans or media or whatever just kind of assume that baseball teams or any sports franchise need to be run as a pure business. Like, why do they need to turn a profit every year? To me, it's like owning a painting or some sort of luxury item. It's like the value of the actual thing itself is going to go up over the course of decades. You don't need to also make a profit on it year over year. And there are a few franchises in sports where the owner takes that approach, but certainly the Twins do not take that approach. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I don't think Twins fans, they're used to this, right? Like you said, it's been happening since you were there. It was happening decades before that, even with previous ownership. But it's not like Twins fans want them to spend $250 million. Their payroll was like 155, 158 last year. They could have kept that and still had some things to do this offseason. You're probably not going to re-sign Sonny Gray at that point, but they could have at least boosted the depth, added a competent fourth or fifth starter, which they right now need because they've had some injuries and poor performances there. And instead, they're at like 130, 125. I mean, that's just not acceptable. And my worry is with the TV situation, with the fan morale the way it is, what's going to cause that to change? How's that going to go back up? Because if you keep playing this poorly, partly as a result of slashing payroll, well, fans aren't going to flock to the ballpark. Your television ratings are going to go down at a point where you're trying this offseason to find a new high-paying television home. Well, that's not going to be real easy when the team is bad and no one's watching. So it becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, well, we cut payroll because we weren't making money. Well, now fan interest is down. The team's bad. You're not going to make any money off that. So my worry is that this is not going to be a short-term thing. And in terms of payroll rankings, they had been close to average over the past 4 or 5 years, which honestly I think is all people in Minnesota are asking for. Spend somewhere near a league average amount, and now they're back down to the bottom third, which is they're basically spending at a level right now relative to the major league average payroll that is identical to the end of the Metrodome days. And that is certainly very, very far from what people of Minnesota were promised when Target Field started becoming a possibility.
Hang that damn answer in the Louvre. That is like picture perfect. It's true though, on the long-term side of things, like you want to build your franchise to have high value long-term. This is not the cycle, because then the blame process starts, right? Oh, well, fans aren't showing up. We didn't do as well. Why do you think they didn't show up? We had this problem too in the offseason where the Seattle Mariners are in their winning window. They essentially either cut or stayed the same because they were worried that their TV subscription moved to a different service and that people were going to unsubscribe. I'm like, great way to get them to unsubscribe is to not invest in the team, even if you take a little loss on the short term. You're right. It's second generation owners, certain number crunchers. There's a few that stand out, and there are a bunch that are in it for the wrong reasons. Anyway, I'm going to take us back to the team for a sec, because fan question that has gotten consensus here while we're chatting is Edouard Julien. What are you seeing from him? There's pop, that's fine, but he's hitting 200. He hasn't looked like he did last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, with him, he's a really weird player type, and I don't mean that like I think has the potential to be an all-star player or certainly an all-star caliber hitter, but he's so patient at the plate. He has an incredible eye at the plate, and if you look at like his swing and miss versus chase rate, like he's not going after pitches that are outside the zone. It's almost comical that he refuses to even borderline pitches. But what we've seen is then he gets in 2-2, 3-2. He gets deep counts because he has a great eye, but he also has so much swing and miss that he basically gets one swing each at bat. And if he swings and misses on 2-2, it's a strikeout. And then the other thing we've seen, especially early on this year, he takes a lot of borderline pitches, and more often than not, he's correct that they're not strikes. But that doesn't matter if the umpire is going to call him strikes most of the time. And we've seen a lot of that too. I think that's been a complaint by the Twins kind of line up wide, which, you come up with complaints when you're not hitting it all. So I think his opposite field power is very impressive. I think the hidden thing with him is this time last year, he was viewed as maybe a DH long-term, and they didn't even think he was necessarily passable at second. He's improved more as an infielder in a short period of time than any Twin I can remember since probably Corey Koski at third base. I remember when Koski first came up, they were playing him in left field because Tom Kelly didn't trust him. And then at the end of Koski's Twins career, I feel like he was a borderline Gold Glove caliber third baseman. I don't know that Julien will be borderline Gold Glove caliber, but he's improved to the point that he's pretty much average at second base. I think he's got 20, 25 homer power. The question with him, he's going to draw a lot of walks, but to me, is he going to hit 230 or is he going to hit 260? If he hits 260, and that's going to involve, you're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive. You can't be so passive at the plate and have that, be kind of the blurred lines between patient and passive. But if he hits 250, 260, he's going to have 20 homers. He's going to draw 75 walks. To me, that's a front line, guy you can build a lineup around. And I still have, pretty good confidence that he can get there.
All right, feel a little better about that. And good call on the defense, too. That's true. I'm looking at the bat a lot, and you're like, damn, this guy at one point was DH only. They really made room for him, too, in the offseason with the Jorge Polanco deal. This was great, Aaron. Hope you enjoyed it. The AJ Pierzynski curse lives on, right, AJ? Because it's what division series they have to win?
Well, they got to win a division series before I lift my curse off of them.
Oh, man.
Ah, wow. Oof.
But also, I would have gone Justin Morneau over Corey Koski, but just saying.
All right, I'll tell him you said that. First base, though, is like, right?
Whoa, no.
Whoa.
First base.
Whoa.
No,
I mean, it's...
Ask Tom Kelly how important first base was.
All right, maybe you're right.
Aaron, this was awesome. Appreciate you, man. Great having you on.
Also, don't forget Michael Kadire went from infield to the outfield because he couldn't do it.
That's true. Nobody played the baggy better than Michael Kadire at the Metrodome. That's for sure. Thank you guys for having me on. It's fun always.
Thanks, Aaron. This was great.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.